everyone, welcome back to their hardware news recap of the week. In this one, we'll be talking about an overclocked EPYC CPU. Corsair is acquiring Fanatec. Some news on Intel, actually a couple pieces about Intel, including them getting some funding. Sony revealing its 30th anniversary themed PS5 and PS5 Pro. Now, it's doing this because people were so happy about the price of the PS5 Pro that they thought, we'll make some more money. Also, Nintendo is suing Palworld developer Pocket Pair, and we've got plenty of other topics too. 4090 rumors about it being discontinued, Tryx responding to the LUCA review, things like that. And actually in this past week, if you haven't seen it, we posted 3 very positive reviews about cases. If you want some of that coverage, go check it out. I keep bringing this up because the positive videos, unfortunately, the way that both just kind of human behavior is, but also the way social media works, a lot of people don't really notice or click on the positive ones, and it doesn't stop us from making them, but we would like people to know about the good products and not only the ones that suck. So anyway, check them out if you want to see those, but we also have the Tryx video going up if you want to just see the train wreck. Let's get into the news. Before that, this video is brought to you by Lian Li and the O11D Evo RGB case. The O11D Evo RGB is an updated entry to the famed O11 lineup, retaining heavy support for fan mounts, drive mount locations, and flexibility on component mounting, such as 2 options for the power supply. The O11D Evo RGB's dual chamber approach aims to maximize cable storage on the backside to streamline cable management, coupling this with a unique vertical GPU mount to showcase the most expensive part in most systems. Learn more at the link in the description below. First up, a quick GN update. So we have a Fab Tour documentary coming out. It's a full-length video. It's over an hour long. On September 27th, it's going up on Friday. It's, as always, it's free to access on YouTube. Nothing different from that. It's just an upload. But it's a special upload. And the reason is because we spent over a year going back and forth on it. Now, we didn't work nonstop for a year on it. It's not like the project took that long. All total, it was probably something like, I don't know, maybe a couple weeks of kind of real serious sitting down and getting it done type of work. But we filmed it all back in July of 2023. It is some really cool information. We got actually unprecedented access to a lot of facilities that are part of Intel's fabs in the US. So we went to Arizona. We got to film a construction site. We filmed a bunch of areas of the fab that they don't typically show. They're off the normal track for tours. And then I also flew around different places. We got to speak to experts like David Cantor, who I have a lot of respect for in the industry, to learn about how CPUs are made, how these fab machines work, things like that. The reason I'm bringing it up is because it's been in the pipeline for over a year. We finally finished it about a month ago, and we're going to publish it on Friday. Now, I still have a lot of problems with Intel right now, specifically with 13th and 14th gen CPUs, how they're handling it. I am actively looking at a lot of big warranty issues with the company that our viewers have emailed us about. If you have one, you can email us as well, tips@gamersnexus.net. So that coverage is still continuing, but the video remains educational and really cool, and it's just neat. It's a documentary about fabrication facilities. So anyway, we view them as separate things, where it's like there's kind of the product side where they have a lot of problems, and then we've got this just educational content piece that's totally disconnected. I wanted to put this in news just because the timing makes it a little bit difficult with the CPU problems and all the other stuff we've talked about in our videos. But anyway, Fab Tour is really cool. I'm excited about it despite Intel's issues right now, and I hope you all are able to take something educational away from it. We had a lot of expert insight to this one. There were 4 main people who appeared on camera to talk about things ranging from specialized construction to the actual sort of transistor level fabrication. So anyway, I'm gonna play a quick trailer for it for you, just some of our coolest clips from it, and check it out. We ventured out into the 100-degree heat in the Arizona desert to create our 3rd ever documentary, this time showing the construction and the operation of one of the world's most advanced manufacturing facilities.
The building, what's actually being built, and then the clean room inside is my responsibility. This is actually a very critical section of the site. Both of these areas that you see, so the area to approximately my 1 o'clock position, that is our batch plant. That's where we make concrete.
Basically, either I'm using it to extract molecules out of my chamber and then to inject whatever my recipe is for what I'm trying to, how I'm trying to process my wafer.
Perfect. Okay. That is a great explanation answering the question of what's going on here, so I appreciate
it. A little less like R2D2 threw up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Kind of gets into some of the almost artistry of this. So you have this issue called overlay, which is maybe the image you're projecting is a nanometer off from the underlying chip. Well, you know, if you're talking about a large feature like an 800 nanometer wire, well, it's no big deal. 1 nanometer, give or take, between friends, not an issue. When you're talking about 40 nanometers, suddenly, that percentage-wise, it might be significant.
We may be doing some type of ion implanting. We want to change the properties of that portion.
I don't want to sound like an idiot, but what is ion implanting?
Sure, so it's a semiconductor. I either need to make that region positive or I need to make it negative. Okay. So I got to either implant something with a valence of 3.
So that's the trailer. It's pretty cool. One of our requirements for this whole process was not allowing Intel to have like this oversight over really any of it. So we blurred some of their partner logos. Just, I don't know, there's boring intellectual property, like legal stuff with logos. But in terms of everything else, we basically said, hey, here's the deal. We'll make the video. We don't charge to make these types of videos. We just do it because it's educational and cool. However, you have zero control over basically anything. So they did eventually agree to that. It took over 6 months for our rep, who was trying his hardest to get that approved, and he got it approved. And actually, when we got there, our tour guide for it, the technical guide for the fab, said to me, this is the first time we're doing it this way. And it was basically like, hey, hopefully you don't leak a bunch of trade secrets in the video, because that would be a problem for everybody in the future. So anyway, check back for that. Now, separately, we are gonna actually jump right back onto the microcode testing. That's something I started up again now that we're done with the cases. So that'll be a separate thing. But yeah, check out the documentary. It's cool, and it's disconnected from everything. I just wanted to mention that because the timing that Intel has created with all of its problems is annoying to work with. So separate from that, GN Extras has been brought back to life, so it's our secondary channel. I have a bunch of interviews, including one with AMD's, as they call him, father of Zen, Mike Clark, that we never ran on the main channel for various timing reasons and YouTube kind of boring YouTube algorithm reasons. And so they're great interviews, they're really good discussions, and we're gonna start putting those on GN Extras. I have currently, I think, 7 or 8 that are just ready to go, and we never launched because YouTube kind of punishes a channel if it gets lower views too frequently on videos that, you know, they're great videos, they're good technical discussions, but the timing just doesn't always work out with the audience for YouTube the way it behaves. So anyway, those will be on GN Extras. There is one already there right now. It's gonna be the Mike Clark interview with AMD's chief architect of Zen, so check that out. Okay, getting into the news. All right, up first, some pretty big news in the gaming side of the industry. So Nintendo has decided to sue Palworld developer Pocket Pair. Palworld is the Pokemon-inspired game that was wildly successful. I think it hit its peak around January or thereabouts. And Nintendo, in its public statement, said, lawsuit, I choose you. Our current understanding is that this is a patent lawsuit, not a copyright or trademark lawsuit, or at least they haven't stated that at this time. Specifically, this appears to be over a software patent. Now, patents are still intellectual property, but it doesn't look like Nintendo is currently suing Pocket Pair for infringement of its character design, or in other words, they're not stating that Pocket Pair and Palworld are infringing upon the identity, the IP of the characters themselves, and rather this comes down to the games. In a very short public statement, Nintendo wrote this, quote, "This lawsuit seeks an injunction against infringement and compensation for damages on the grounds that Palworld, a game developed and released by the defendant, infringes multiple patent rights," end quote. Pocket Pair pretty immediately responded to the lawsuit. The company wrote this, quote, "Yesterday, a lawsuit was filed against our company for patent infringement. We have received a notice of this lawsuit and will begin the appropriate legal proceedings and investigations into the claims of patent infringement. At this moment, we are unaware of the specific patents we are accused of infringing upon, and we have not been notified of such details, end quote. Now, there are numerous video game patents out there. Vice actually has a great article from a few years ago recapping some of the famous video game patents, and these included examples such as Sega's patents surrounding Crazy Taxi's arrow navigation system, or the concept of having an arrow tell you where to go in a video game, Namco's loading screen minigames, and BioWare's famous dialogue wheel that is actually patented. A viewer comment also reminded us that Warner Brothers has a patent of its own on the Nemesis system found in its Shadow of War game. These types of patents typically protect the general intent of how a video game system functions mechanically. Now, having a patent, as always with intellectual property protections, doesn't mean it'll hold up, but it's expensive to litigate and it can be risky. So as the Palworld developers stated at the time of when we're filming this at least, the specific patents that Nintendo is claiming are infringed upon by Pocket Pair are not publicly known. We're aware of a couple patents that might be relevant. This is, however, just us saying something that we're aware of. We don't actually know if any of these are in the filing. But just to kind of give some background information, some conjecture, here's what we've sort of dug up. One involves the way characters, or Pokemon and pals, are caught and do battle in a virtual space. Another involves specific mechanics of how players are able to traverse the game world while riding or interacting with those characters as mounts. The lawsuit is filed in Japan. Unsurprisingly, our team has absolutely no understanding of the Japanese legal system, so can't really provide any useful insight there. In the US, patent language typically aims to be as broad as it can be, while still being specific enough to ensure that the right protections are afforded without opening it up to being too broad that it ends up being invalidated by whoever might be challenging it later. So if you want to learn more about patents from someone qualified to speak on them, we've actually done this topic in the past. It was just with Lian Li, Fanatec, and Thermaltake. So we have a video about that when Lian Li filed lawsuits against both Fanatec and Thermaltake over a fan patent. And for that, we hired a lawyer to help answer some common questions. So you can check out that video if you want some background just in general on patents. But anyway, we'd use a clip from Pokemon to transition out of this story and into the next story, but don't really want to be copyright claimed. So just imagine one. Just think of like some kind of Ash, Pikachu, I don't know, maybe Snorlax is in there. Use your imagination, because Nintendo is very litigious. Moving on to the next story. NVIDIA's 4090 will be 2 years old in October, and according to a new rumor, this is also when the card may be discontinued, or at least for production. With the help of machine translation, a Japanese website reports that, quote, according to sources such as China's AIB or add-in board partners, production of the GeForce RTX 4090 is scheduled to end in October 2024. The Japanese site, which I think is pronounced gazlog.jp, says the information comes by way of a post on Hakuban-do or do, you can correct me on that in the comments, and it adds that, quote, although it has not been finalized, NVIDIA plans to discontinue production of the GeForce RTX 4090 and the China-exclusive 4090D, or Dragon, around October 2024. We've asked a few contacts in the industry if they can verify this statement. At this time, I haven't gotten any responses back. Doesn't mean anything, it just means we haven't gotten a response yet. We'll update you if we hear anything useful, though. So this paves the path for NVIDIA's much-rumored RTX 5090 and 5080. Those rumors have been all over the place. The early rumors said quarter 3, quarter 4 this year. There were rumors about quarter 1 next year. They've kind of gone back and forth a couple times, so we don't know at this point. Either way, the timing would make sense to stop making the current gen models if new ones are coming out. So considering the 5090 hasn't been announced yet, it doesn't have a release date, pricing behavior often changes whenever there is a switchover, as you'd expect. The direction it changes just depends on supply. In the past, we've had major price cuts sometimes because there's just too much supply, like there's a ton of leftover 30 series stuff as we rolled into 40. If there ends up being a shortage of 4090s though, then obviously the price might go up. So anyway, it sounds like new cards remain on the horizon. That's kind of all there is to this one. The next one, AMD has a new AGESA coming up, or AGESA. AGESA stands for AMD Generic Encapsulated Software Architecture. It's a binary that AMD distributes to motherboard vendors as a backbone for BIOS. AGESA includes things you all likely know if you used an AMD related motherboard. So that'd be the overclocking menu, not the motherboard manufacturer one, but the AMD specific overclocking menu. Things like Curve Optimizer, Curve Shaper, that's all distributed through AGESA, through AMD directly. And it also includes important updates for CPUs and behavioral changes for CPUs. So the new AGESA 1.202 has been in beta for a little bit. It's going to be rolling out soon to boards as it's finalized. And we haven't yet tested 1.202. We'll do so, though, as soon as it gets into a final public launch state. There have been a few public tests between forums and other media for 1.202. This includes from overclocked.net users and German language publication hardwarelux.de, which both indicate an improvement in cross-CCD latency on Zen 5. Both datasets support that the new AGESA may meaningfully reduce latency, with the overclock.net user finding a 105 nanosecond reduction cross-TCD versus 1.201A. Previously, just before it was shut down, Ryan Smith of Fanatec made one of the more publicly known posts about this latency figure on Zen 5. How this manifests in actual performance would depend on the application. We are planning on re-benchmarking all the CPUs with just everything because there's been a ton of updates. So we've got the new Windows update to run, we have this AGESA update to run, and then we've got new Intel microcode to look at too. And so what we're doing is waiting for either Arrow Lake or X3D, whatever has the next launch cycle, to retest all that stuff. And we'll just include everything in it at that point. So it's a full picture of everything that's changed in the last 40 days or something. It's been really fast-paced changes. So anyway, that's our next plan for the updates. Don't know which will come out first in terms of X3D or Arrow Lake. The Arrow Lake rumors are for October, so it's going to be pretty soon regardless. And we'll test it all then and let you know what it looks like as a complete picture. The one downside being maybe if some of the stuff remains in beta up through that point, and we'll just have to make a judgment call on if we want to include it or leave it out until it's public. But depending on the state it's in, we'll include it. All right, next one. So Tryx emailed us when it learned of the many issues we encountered with the LUCA L70 computer case that it makes. So we have a video that went up a couple days ago. If you haven't seen it, it's a critical review of a computer case called the LUCA L70 from a company called Tryx. It's the most critical case review we've posted in a long time. You can check it out for examples of why. The first 10 seconds pretty much show you. The case has some major design oversights though. So in addition to quality issues, it had an enormous amount of stacked thermal obstructions on the bottom of the case for something that was advertised as bottom to top airflow. That included aluminum walls around the fans, a side panel that extends to the floor, triple stacked fan trays and filters that further block air. Plus it had issues with panels blocking cable management, SSD cables pointing the wrong direction, captive screws in areas where those screws must be fully removed to use a case feature, and plenty more. Tryx is a company founded by industry veterans and supported by once major players in the industry like ASATEC, which is the pump supplier for Tryx's Panorama cooler. And so the company emailed us when it learned of the critical look in the review, and the most important parts of the email say this. We'll put the whole thing on the screen though. Quote, after another internal alignment, we've decided to postpone the LUCA on-shelf date. Here are the next steps we plan to take. Pause sales on Newegg and Amazon, await your feedback on the product, reevaluate and revise the product design. So Tryx will be working through our review and whatever other feedback they get. Pausing sales on launch is a big move though, so this might help them think clearly and make decisions on fixes rather than dealing with additional complicated variables that really make the cost challenging to deal with, such as having already sold it to too many people. So at that point, it's like, what do you do? Do you recall it and really balloon the cost, or do you just kind of put a stop to it now and see if there's anything you can fix in place without a total rework? So anyway, from my perspective as a small company, it definitely seems like it would sort of decomplicate the issue to pause the sales. So it's a good move, it seems like, from the outside. Even if out of PR, the best PR people understand that what's best for the consumer a lot of times is the best for PR and best for the company's image. So we think it's a good first step while they evaluate what they want to do. Obviously, they're completely free to disagree with our criticisms. They haven't done that, to be clear. But I want to make our stance clear, which is, if they want to disagree and just sell it anyway, that's totally within their right. They're welcome to do it. This, though, I think if they're taking it seriously and they really want to make some tweaks for real, makes sense. So this also means they might be able to retool some panels at the factory without needing to remake the entire case. And they mentioned something about wanting our feedback or suggestions. Years ago, we decided not to do paid consulting at this point. This is a decision we made some time back and just going forward permanently. And it is possible to navigate the ethics of that, but I just don't want to. We're pretty clear and transparent about not doing consulting. So we're not going to really be able to provide much advice to them. What I can do is give some quick advice here in addition to the review. So this is just our opinions, but we think Tryx should reduce the amount of stacked material obstructing bottom intake fans, increase the porosity of the panel. They could resolve the top panel caving in issue by adding a support triangle like the O11D Vision or adding a pillar. The clasps that hold the mushroom head joint on the glass panel are too loose. This could be rectified for pretty cheap by swapping these parts for grippier ones. They're screwed in, fortunately, so it'd be a relatively easy change. The issue with the SSDs being pointed the wrong way could probably be changed with a tooling update and a replacement part. Fortunately, that part is modular. The issue with captive thumb screws in places that need them to be not captive is just a screw swap, so that's easy. Front I/O cable length could be solved by changing the cables. And so a lot of this stuff is recoverable, probably expensive to do, but you'd end up being left with a case that, at least foundationally, is in a much better spot than it is now. So anyway, we'll report back to you all as soon as possible if Tryx sends us any follow-ups or notes what it's planning to do for the changes as soon as it becomes aware of that in its evaluation steps. While we're on the subject, Fractal sent us a short response to our Era 2 review. The company specifically commented on the cracked wood panel that we saw in the review. Now, overall, if you didn't see the Era 2, actually a lot of people didn't see this one. It's a very positive review. We like the case a lot. The Antec Flux Pro we like a lot as well. And the A3 MATX we were very positive on. So we had 3 super positive case reviews in the last 2 weeks. The Era 2 we liked. We just had a crack in the wood panel. So Fractal sent us this email. They said, quote, "We apologize that you received a wood panel with a crack. We want to affirm that this is not what our customers should expect when purchasing the Era 2. Please note that any customer receiving a faulty panel or part can contact customer support directly. The wood panel is covered under our warranty with a no questions asked policy. If customers need a replacement, they can submit a ticket using a form. Replacement panels or damaged components are free and shipping is free as well to the customer," end quote. So there's not much to this response, pretty basic. It's expected behavior, but the sad fact is that expected at this point is not common enough, so it becomes commendable. So Fractal's response here we think is good. No questions asked as an approach to replacing just a defective panel is obviously what should be done. We're happy to see that they're doing it. And confirmation that replacements, including shipping, are free of charge is also excellent to have because customers shouldn't have to pay shipping if the damage was no fault of their own. So that's basically all we could ask for in this situation. We didn't really make that huge of a deal out of it to begin with, but happy to hear that they're taking these steps. Now, the next best step would be if they do any kind of modification, but here's the thing, we don't know how common that type of issue will be. There were a lot of comments with really great wood insights for how the panels might age, might deal with that rigidity of the structure underneath it. And so we're not sure if it needs any changes. As we said in the review, we're not material experts on wood, but regardless of the rate of occurrence, we can look to Noctua's statement in our last news update for an example of where a company made some small reworks to a product to address an issue that affected around 1% of people, which is just so over the top. I mean, it really, that is the ultimate Noctua response to a situation. So some real serious commitment, sets the standard. And it looks like Fractal is kind of joining on that side of things, so good to see. All right, Fractal sending us more information about the panel itself soon. We'll update you if they send us anything that we can publish. Okay, next one. In a news report, sources of Reuters claim that Intel lost the bid for the PlayStation 6 console, whenever that comes out, for its CPU solution or its SoC solution which allowed AMD to continue carrying the mantle. The news outlet reports that the negotiations between Intel and Sony reportedly took months, with both companies' CEOs involved, as well as, quote, dozens of engineers and executives. These fell apart, according to Reuters, in 2022. The publication wrote that, quote, a dispute over how much profit Intel stood to take from each chip sold to the Japanese electronics giant blocked Intel from settling the price with Sony, end quote. Reuters also wrote this, quote, typically, Sony consoles sell more than 100 million units across a half decade. For a chip designer, the console business delivers lower profit than the gross margins of more than 50% for products like artificial intelligence chips, but nonetheless represents steady business that can profit from technology a company has already developed. Now we can throw some conjecture on top of this, where actually GN, we have previously heard through our own sources, through old discussions, that NVIDIA elected not to try and compete over some of the console bids in generations past, specifically because the margin was not high enough. Where the way NVIDIA looks at it is, there's a fixed wafer supply. You can't just buy more of it, even if you have the money for it, because there's a fixed amount of them available. And NVIDIA, at least as it was described to us at that time, unofficially decided that it would make more sense to pursue higher margin by selling those in things like discrete DIY GPUs or data center and enterprise GPUs. AI wasn't really a buzzword at that time yet, and RT was only just becoming one. So it makes sense if they think they can sell everything they make and they have higher margin elsewhere. That is kind of how you end up where we are with this. So wafer supply is limited, fab capacity is limited, so not a lot of ways they can force more through. Reuters reports that Intel's own internal projections estimate that the company would be able to generate roughly $30 billion if the deal went through. AMD currently dominates the console market. It's powered the PlayStation hardware, such as the PS4, the PS5, of course, the recent PS5 Pro. AMD also powers the Xbox Series X and its numerous variants. And previous console architecture has included a diverse mix of hardware, including power architecture solutions. The current Switch is powered by NVIDIA. Intel has been in home consoles actually in the past. In 2001, for example, a custom Intel Pentium 3 was at the heart of the original Xbox. Responding to Reuters reporting and published in the article, an Intel spokesperson stated this, quote, we strongly disagree with this characterization, but are not going to comment about any current or potential customer conversations. We have a very healthy customer pipeline across both our product and foundry business. Up next, in news related to Intel, the US government recently awarded the company $3 billion in funding for the Secure Enclave program, we'll define that in a second, under the CHIPS and Science Act. Now, our understanding, actually this is from Intel directly in its press release, they state that it is separate funding from the previous Intel CHIPS Act funding that we've discussed on this channel, and that's been in the news recently. So we weren't familiar with the Secure Enclave program. The name kind of gives it away. Here's what Intel's news release describes it as, quote, the Secure Enclave program builds on previous projects between Intel and the Department of Defense, or DoD, such as Rapid Assured Microelectronics Prototypes, Commercial, or RAMP-C, and State-of-the-Art Heterogeneous Integration Prototype, or SHIP. They continued and said Intel will help secure the domestic chip supply chain and collaborate with the DoD to help enhance the resilience of U.S. technological systems by advancing secure cutting-edge solutions, end quote. Now the U.S., of course, has military interests in securing chip supply, which sounds like this is partially related to at least. And again, Intel stated that this $3 billion is different from the other billions of dollars that has been discussed for the CHIPS Act. So we have some other information for the CHIPS Act. I'm still kind of talking to people about it, so we might have more to kind of give as backstory on that as these topics continue to come up. But for now, that one stays there. All right, up next, a quick one. German overclocker Surgman recently managed to overclock an AMD EPYC 4124P CPU to nearly 6.7 gigahertz using liquid nitrogen. The 4124P is a 4-core, 8-thread part. It comes with an advertised max boost of 5.1 gigahertz typically, and so running it at 6,691.17 megahertz that matters when you're competitive is a major increase and pretty impressive. This is particularly noteworthy since EPYC CPUs weren't originally intended to be overclocked. These, however, are the desktop EPYC parts. So Surgman actually used a B650E Aorus Tachyon AM5 motherboard. We talked about these in a news episode some time back. We mostly wanted to just surface this one because overclocking is fun. Achievements like this are fun to look at, and you can find the submission on Hardware Bot. Up next, Corsair is set to acquire Fanatec, the sim racing brand. Corsair is making the purchase from German company AMD AG. We're told that the deal doesn't include any EPYCs. The deal is expected to close by the time you're seeing this video. Fanatec is a well-recognized brand in the sim racing world, and its products are particularly popular in the mid-range and high-end markets. It's known for things like its direct drive wheels, which provide a lot of torque and simulate real-world racing experiences, but they can also generate so much torque that they can cause injuries if used or set up improperly by the user. Corsair has been on a buying spree for years. In June 2018, the company acquired streaming accessory maker Elgato. A year later, in July 2019, it acquired the system integrator Origin PC. Later that year, in December 2019, it acquired gaming controller company Scuf Gaming. According to Endor, Fanatec product sales reached approximately $110 million in revenue in 2023. Corsair's most recent acquisition of Fanatec is made during the backdrop, however, of the company's stock dipping down to basically or near all-time lows since Corsair went public in 2020. And the last one for this week, to celebrate the launch of the original PlayStation nearly 30 years ago now, and to celebrate the sweeping acceptance and adoration of the $700 PlayStation 5 Pro, Sony is releasing a limited edition PS5 and PS5 Pro. Can't wait to see the price. These feature some of the styling seen in the original 1994 console. Most notably, the new variants feature a similar gray color palette that the original PlayStation used. This look extends to the new DualSense and DualSense Edge controllers, which can be bought separately from the consoles. They feature the original face button colors, the old 4-color PlayStation logo at the center. The controller's charging cable has been designed to look like the original PlayStation controller's equivalent. The limited edition consoles also come with PlayStation-themed accessories, including cable ties, sticker, poster, paperclip, stuff like that. As far as the PS5 Pro version of this is concerned, it comes with more stand than the normal PS5 Pro. How much more? Undefined, because you can't divide by 0. And this one has one. Unlike the PS5 Pro, however, the original PlayStation did come with a disc drive out of the box. Sony also revealed an original PlayStation-themed PlayStation Portal, which is the company's PS5 streaming handheld. The 30th anniversary themed hardware releases November 21st. They say there will be 12,300 PS5 Pro units to commemorate the original PlayStation's December 3rd launch in Japan. That's it for hardware news this week. Thanks for watching. Check back for the Fab Tour documentary. Like I said, despite Intel's problems, it is still an impressive feat of manufacturing, and it's really cool to see how that stuff is made. So check back for that video on September 27th. We'll see you all next time.